Here we go.
Okay, well, welcome to the podcast. I lost track if this is number 7, number 8, or number 9. I was just looking it up on YouTube when I guess time ran out. So we're here anyways, and who cares? This has been
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. In this podcast, the first thing I want to do is say that it's been a week of revelations. This whole period of time, let's say maybe the last year, as far as esoteric revelations are concerned. That's why I had to revise a lot of the stuff I wrote, and it's kind of an ongoing thread, and they're snowballing and accumulating. And so the revelations that I'm talking about are basically putting all of the work we're doing into a certain context. And my big question is, okay, how do we, at the level of the 4 levels that we discussed, level 1, level 2 to level 4, and back again, how do you resolve the issue of negativity, evil, suffering, basically the root cause of what messes up everything on this planet? And the only way I can really look at it is mythologically, because, that way you have archetypes and you can translate archetypes into cultivation practices, into magic, into meditation. They become real presences, whereas if you analyze it philosophically, it's just another academic exercise. And it never really leads anywhere in my experience. I mean, it's all round and round as if it's meant to be that way. Excuse me. So I'm saying this because a lot of the material is not how we started out, where we're going through something that, okay, this is how most people do it, or how it's recorded that it's done, or here's the tradition, or the modern rendition of the tradition. Now it's into, excuse me again, it's that atmosphere. It's all dry here.
I know how you feel, buddy. It's the same thing over here in Colorado. So yeah.
A dry spell. Sound a little bit like you got a cold, or
no, maybe no. I feel good. Sometimes my voice gets a little lower though, and that's actually good for music. But yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just saying that when we started this work with the Dragon Gin, a lot of it was exploratory. Plus, you could see like there's potential there. Who wouldn't want to command 72 gin? I mean, you only had that one in Aladdin.
I know, right?
Yeah, 71 more wouldn't hurt, And I'm not one of those crazies who abuses the power. But so it's not like my motives were selfish or anything, or even ours, but it was just a cool concept. And then the fact that, well,
it was just I was just turned on. I was just curious about the whole thing. It's like, really, you can do this stuff? Really? Yeah, I didn't know. I was a complete novice. I didn't even know the word grimoire. So, I mean, I was like completely out of the loop.
Anyway, well, I only knew it from the movies. I used to like horror movies and stuff. Still do sometimes. But the grimoires were basically what interested me also was the fact that it was so demonized. And then I realized, this isn't because these are actual demons or whether they are or not. This is because of people who want to discourage the competition. You don't want other people to do this. You want to have the upper hand. And that is a primary motive. That's why I always question, you got these, I'm selling this, nobody ever sold anything unless they got a high price for it where esoteric knowledge was concerned in the past. I mean, now it's downplayed and who knows, but in the past it was considered, the Romans made it illegal. I mean, they thought that, you had magical powers, you could subvert the government. You could curse the emperor, whatever. Even if they're considered gods, still, astrologers are like, these people are going to jinx us all. So it is a matter of competition, and the church drove it home later. Most of the people doing the summonings in the Middle Ages were Catholic priests, and that's why the whole ritual sounds like a church ritual a little bit.
I remember one thing that you said was, the Catholics were the ones who coined the term Satanism. Before that, you didn't have it. So,
I don't even know if it was the early Greek church that did it, but It was the church that the Christian church came up. Satan was basically a Jewish concept found in the most obscure work, not obscure, but the oldest one, the book of Job. The source of that myth is probably the oldest one in the Torah, in the Bible, Genesis. And basically, it starts like that. It starts with this being called Shaitan, Satan. And Satan basically means the guy that doesn't listen, or the upstart, the revolutionary, the disobedient one, So whoever doesn't obey authority. And in that story, it was just like a devil's advocate. That's where the term came from, where this guy was like, well, let's prove that this Job guy is actually faithful. Let's make his life a living hell and see if he really likes you, God. So it was trying to justify why bad things happen to good people and all that. And that's the questions that I was asking when I got into this. All of this is like, okay, why the hell would these entities, if they're even real, either this is all like a pie in the sky, or if they're even real, why would they submit to somebody? And don't tell me it's because I've got God behind me, because why would God even support that kind of thing? And he doesn't, or allegedly, according to religion, it's not good to do that. It strongly discouraged summoning spirits in the churches. Hell, my friend of mine was doing yoga outside of the church in this village where I am, like in the summer, cousin of mine, and the priest came out and said, "What are you doing?" Doing yoga. Oh, that's satanic. You shouldn't be practicing Satanism in front of a holy place.
Well, I don't. Wait. I don't understand, man. Was the guy just stretching?
He was with a bunch of other women that like giving instructions. So they had their mats all laid down in front of the church entrance, which is like in this village square with houses all around. It kind of looks like a Transylvanian village, without the castle.
Okay. That's all right. Okay, so they just had their yoga mats out. Okay,
yeah.
All right, well.
So the priest was like,
don't do that in front of God.
I better not be seeing any crucifixes turned upside down on your mats and stuff. It's like, why were So anyways, man. That's what I'm saying.
All right, hang on, amigo. Now, I don't want to derail anything.
No.
But I have stories to tell. Just keep that in mind with what happened with my genie experience.
Don't
I just
worry.
wanted to let you know.
That was my intention. Okay. That was my intention. We're still only 7 minutes in. So anyways, I was just saying that the revelations are addressing this issue and framing everything in terms of this issue, which is the issue of evil or badness or suffering. And it's not in terms of occultish or this is the power of Jesus and blah, blah, blah. This is in terms of something specific that monotheistic religions have represented or claim to represent it. And it's basically a certain opening in human potential that is historic in nature. And this historic opening is essentially 2,000 years ago or around thereabouts. People started experiencing a shift, and maybe 1,000 years before. But this shift was coinciding with the advent of civilization and urbanization as we know it. So something came that complemented human consciousness in some way. And this transformation is leading to new options. So it's a turning point in human evolution. And then we come to like current day, where somebody named Carl Kalleman, some Swedish scholar, looked at the Mayan calendar and was saying, well, the Mayan calendar ends means that's the end of time itself. And he noted that there are circles of evolution that go, okay, the universal circle is like billions of years. Then you have the galactic circle, which is like, hundreds of billions. And then you have tens of billions with the galactic circle. Then the circle of the solar system, a few billion. Then the Earth, 1 billion. Then you go geologic time, then biological time. Basically, awareness is conscious of closer and smaller intervals of time, starting from a universal. The idea is that the universe is aware, and then at every level of evolution that stuff happens to complete a certain cycle, from galactic down to planetary, down to biological, down to molecular, the time cycle decreases. And it's like viewing the Mayan calendar in terms of these spirals of all of these accomplishments that go in shorter and shorter periods of time until we get down to present day. And at 2012, on the winter solstice, somewhere December 23rd, something like that, 21st, time went down to zero. The last hour, the last minute, the last second, poof. And then time spirals out in the opposite direction, which means we're done researching things. We're done, consciousness is done trying to figure out what's going on. It's basically scanned the whole spectrum of the universe. It's like when you do a virus scan on your computer. It goes through all the files, all the this, all the everything you've got on there through a kind of hierarchy. However, the ordering is. So once the scan is complete, then action can be taken. So our myths, especially the Christian myths, which are some of the most modern of this period, this last 2,000 years has been dominated, in other words, by it. Audience, forgive any misconceptions or faux pas or stumblings of the tongue as these concepts are laid out. I'm trying to get the skeleton of it and then put some meat on that skeleton to convey the meaning of it, rather than be factually accurate in whatever historic allusions I'm giving here, or traditional illusions. So the main thing is that we've come down to the wire, and everything that transpired from 2012, according to this calendar dynamic and interpretation, is a whole other flow of time. It's a new beginning where something is happening that never happened before. And it's what the Christians would call the end days. But these end days are the end days of the old ways, not the end days of humanity. Everything that we're experiencing has been corrupted from its original intention because of compromises in evolution and existential ones that I'm not going to get into. I don't want to get doctrinal, and this isn't about Christian eschatology. What it is the esoteric meaning behind it. And that esoteric meaning has to do with evolutionary possibility in terms of human awareness and the context and the environment where it functions. So that's how I am now looking at this alchemy with the jinn. And right now the jinn, and that's what explains why the jinn are not only allowing this alchemy, but permitting it, encouraging it, supporting it. So you don't have to perform sacrifices, offerings. The only thing you're giving is your limitations, so to speak, including the limitations that would make you be petty or egoic or egocentric or just, needing a hobby, basically, when you do this kind of work. So, Jay, take it away. Tell us what happened with our two first genies, the genies of the gate.
Okay, let's see. What did happen? Basically not, I don't know, man. Maybe this is good news. Maybe I just dropped the ball. I'm not really sure, but
there's no ball to drop. Just keep running.
So I did the normal thing that I normally do with the organ fusion, and I do that every day. And I've done this whole process every day to summon the genies, and then I brought out the Two of Swords, because that's how we're like connecting Baal and Agarez. And I'm going on what you told me to do, or at least what I remember you telling me to do, to give the holy names to the genies. And so what I did was I just said the holy names at the end of the ritual, and the genie names. All four or all eight of the genies were there, but I gave extra special attention, and the Two of Swords and the holy names to Baal and Agarez. Yeah. So then I had a dream.
You don't really need, before you say your dream, you don't really need to interpret the Two of Swords as they have it on the card itself. Technically, I'm only using those cards to mark the element, sword, whatever the suit is, to the number. So in this case, we're concerned with the number and the element is expressing through. So two of the element, Two of Swords. It's the power of the number coming through the swords not the quantity. So yeah, the quantity can give you a geometrical representation, like two swords being in each one sword in each hand, balancing the weight, all of this, but it's actually not necessary to get into such philosophical wild goose chases because it just creates more confusion. What it is a procedural directive. So basically, it's telling you, okay, you have the feeling of the energy, right? You have the feeling of the swords. So it's the metal energy through which the fire can conduct, and you actually put the emperor's seal on the emblem. So now the power of two, which in the alchemical manual, that is the actual key to interpreting these number dynamics, is the power of breath. It's the power of how do you say? It's next to consciousness is the next step. So it's basically the power of energy flowing from one point to another and back again. The poles of a battery with the current moving through them. Okay, so then you got chi, life force. That's how they interpret it. So next to consciousness, one step below is the power of the breath. One step below that, even closer to the earth, is the power of reproduction and sensation and actual, stimulating the glands and stuff like that through earth force. So you have that Jing energy, which is the, or Jing, which is the bioforce, and you move that through the attention, but it's a little thicker than Qi, and then Qi, which is conscious breathing. It's whatever generates through that. And that moves, of course, with the attention. So now you're focusing on conscious breathing in all four directions with the Jin pairs, but each Jin pair is specialized to the energy of the element. So you do your Qi breathing and you do it with your lungs and which is the natural element. That's why it's the first one, actually, in this sense. So the two is extremely compatible with the metal, and it should be a better card as far as I'm concerned, because the actual representation of the two in this respect is about the breath, and the lungs are about the breath, and the metal element conducts this kind of force. So when you deal with these guys, you wonder, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just meditate on them? No, you're supposed to focus on breathing. And you're supposed to focus on circulating your chi through your three centers and projecting that chi, because these jinn are actually manifesting through the medium that is your chi. They borrow your energy basically to give themselves a certain form or so you can sense them. So you do this consciously. Only in that case, you're channeling the chi through the metal element. And hence the ruler is there too, because his sigil is on the sword emblem. So there you have a perfect bond of your own internal energies through the metal element and the ruler's presence through the emblem coming together. And you put the third element, the God name, right in there in order to meet the jinn at the crux of those two. See, you're forming like a four-directional connection in a different angle on a different plane. You have the let's repeat those if you can. You have yourself, the element, and then you have the number. They form one level of fusion. And then you have the raw jinn and the God name of the jinn. That's another level of connection. And they meet at the same spot. So from the heavens, you have the God name. From the earth, you have the jinn. From one level, you have the, from yourself, you have the element because your organ supplies that energy. And from the outside of yourself, you have the ruler, right, to the east. So he comes in and meets you halfway at the sword where his emblem gets imprinted. And at the same time, what's the other emblem? There's the other direction. Oh, the God name meets the jinn. So you're supposed to meet the jinn and the God name together, and right at the point where your element and your alchemical and your ruler meet at the same time. So can you imagine those four energy directions? Because each direction is actually an energy experience. The element has a vibration, right? The God name has a vibration. The jinn has a vibration through the seal, and the ruler has a vibration through its seal. Bring those four vibrations together from their imagined or projected positions. Like I said, of course, the divine name is celestial, and the The jinn is terrestrial and you're the element, and the ruler comes from the horizon. So this is the art of it. You're actually creating energetic representations of consciousness. And the how do you say, the directions are telling you to do this through the element at that point. And all of this, when you meet those 4 directions, you are doing it in the context of the tarot trump, which is the general gate itself. That's what you're resolving here. You're resolving the magus of the lovers. You're resolving the mind is basically understanding its role in all of your relations. Anything the mind interacts with, it's understanding what its role is, and this jinn is putting things in perspective. So Baal takes the earth force that you're actually supposed to be using, but you stimulate that through the breath force. You see how complicated every direction is? It's almost like a complex teaching unto itself. Very compact information. When you have all of these symbols arranged in certain ways, they tell a story. So I don't really have to make up anything. I don't have to, like the jinn are like, they don't say like, okay, this is how you do it. You do this, step 1, step 2. No, it's like, look, this meets that, that means this. What happens? Figure it out. You figure it out and then you try to convey it. Go, okay, with you, it's fairly easy. I mean, imagine with other people. With you, it's easy because you do Tai Chi, you understand Chi, you understand energy. You think in terms of feeling. If something feels like this or the vibe, you get it. You have to get it at that level. Otherwise, this can't be done. You can't be making things up. They have to be an energy experiences. Even if they're coming from within, they're tangible. They may not be objective as an outside of you, but they're objective enough as tangible experiences. All you have to trust is that, it's my physical reference frame here. It doesn't have to be like outside of it. So it is technically objective. And the mastery is that you are a composer of sensation. You are a composer of, instead of sensation being something you create, it's already there in these energies through the symbols. And what you do is you strike chords of sensation. So in the first decan, you say, okay, I do a chord, this chord, with these energies bonded together, and they create a uniform waveform. And this waveform opens the gate, and the gate reveals a mystical potential of your mind's ability to relate to anything, and it aligns it with the unseen. So it's not like, oh, I'm here to get psychic abilities by doing this simple little trigger. No, there's a whole drama that doesn't need ritual, but it does need a proficiency in energy composition, energy consciousness composition. In fact, the word yoga, like I've said before, it doesn't necessarily mean bonding or yoking. It means yoking as a chariot, but we yoke a horse to a chariot to harness it. We use a harness. So the English word is actually harnessing for yoga. What are you harnessing? You're harnessing your consciousness and your energy together. You're bonding them into a single force that is a self-aware force. Your own awareness is a force, and this force has waveforms and can be experienced in different ways. The tactile sensations of Qi are a representation of it. They happen to align at the very top, the brain areas, align at the very top of the skull, but at the same time, they connect to the heartbeat and a bunch of other waveforms in the body, and align with the force called Kundalini that moves up and down the spine, or the middle pillar at least. And it all connects us to earth and sky, the sensate opening. So when you're able to read a symbol complex as a living vibration, because it is living, because you tune into your awareness, this is almost like meditating. You see, when you actually meditate, because when you tune into the jinn, you don't just look at the seal and say, arise jinn. You focus on the image that's been described, the one that's non-human. And as you focus on it, your deep mind realizes that this is all symbols. And these symbols actually come together because they're trying to get me to feel something. And as I'm beginning to feel something, I embody it and I can look out from the energy. Doesn't mean I have to get out of my body to do that. Because the jinn, it's a fallacy basically that the jinn are summoned as a separate thing that you look at. The jinn are always summoned from within. and project it outside because that's how you relate to something that is still separate from you. But the energy that you feel of the jinn is within you. And that is the contact, actually. That's the contact point. It's not really out there. Jinn don't radiate light that comes to you. You know, if you are feeling the jinn, you are in the jinn, and the jinn is in you. So all of these fears of possession don't really apply. Possession is ongoing. The thing about possession is that it doesn't want you to know it's happening all the time. It's an influence. So some people break down completely and go full psychopath. Some people resist it, push it away. Some people pretend it's not there and it works for a while. You know, we all have, but everybody is affected. And it doesn't take us away from ourselves. The possession actually defines ourselves. It defines us. It is who we are since we're born because we're living with it for so long. So to actually come to a point and separate from yourself just enough to realize that, well, part of me isn't even me. Or it's really not the me that I would, that's, it's a kind of other me, a doppelganger, something, a perversion of me that I'm still responsible for. So it's not me as an identity. It's actually a false identity that's taken over my nature. The jinn are catalysts that recognize that. And they recognize it because they have been victims of it. Everything evil you experience from the jinn comes from the human collective, but it's not people, it's what possesses them. So there's a deeper layer of demonology here, and it's not the jinn. The jinn are natural beings. I was, one little interjection. There is a being in the Gnostic literature called Yaldabaoth. And this being, I don't know how it translates normally, child of the iniquity or who knows what. But anyways, what this being is like the devil of the Gnostics because they worship spirit. But this devil here in the literature was said to be like a bastard child of the Divine Mother who didn't get permission from the great being, the great spirit to create this. So she did it anyways. It's all bullshit in a very twisted way, whether it was done on purpose or just because of bias. But what this actually describes, according to how I understand it, is that this demiurge, this alleged god of the, devil of the Gnostics, the creator of the world, so to speak, is actually the energy body. It's a solar being. It took over the sun, and the archons were like the extensions of it, and these represented the planets, and they controlled human destiny. So this is an energy body that's being reclaimed, a layer. It's called the solar body or solar awareness. And the light of spirit comes into this solar body in order to generate the human mind. Now, the human mind then goes to a deeper layer, the etheric or lunar body, and that begins with the chi. It begins with your breath. So you're actually taking your natural spirit, and that's been so-called approved by the jinn because they actually work and respond and give you the thumbs up and all of that. And it comes into a point where the jinn are going to help you generate both the solar body, because they do have that celestial connection, and the lunar body to which it connects. So they are jinn of, you might say, a sun-moon combination. Now that's interesting because the word hatha in yoga means sun-moon. So it's almost like a parallel to what it means is that the energy body and the mind are able to come into composite harmony so the spirit can work through them. Basically, it's a form of integration and completion. And the jinn, of course, according to tradition, represent the Temple of Solomon, which is the Temple of Wholeness, because the word Solomon means peace, man of peace, which means actually the man who's peaceful because he's complete, doesn't want anything. He's not going to go out and grab something or cause trouble. So we're turning that around into seeing just what it takes step by step. This is a very intricate type of progression, but we want to simplify it to the bare bones. That's why it's got a whole bunch of symbols, but if we can actually say it simply, somebody with some affinity might be able to pick up on it. And you don't have to create fancy seminars and fancy instruction manuals for it, which may be done one day anyways, who knows? But at this point, information given out like this is almost coded. And there are some people out there who can pick up on it. If it happens, it happens. I don't expect anything, and it has nothing to do with me. However, the jinn intelligence says that, well, it might be possible. In the meantime, the work of the jinn is going to conform to represent the revelation, as I say, because what we want is to basically get rid of the hatred that's inside of us, that's either afflicting us or causing us to afflict others or the world, and where it's dominating the world as a whole. So it almost seems our environment, instead of being our best friend, is like our worst enemy, or it doesn't give a shit. And none of those are actually acceptable from a Magus point of view. So anyways, continue with your exposition there. What happened with the dream?
Well, well said, Ari. I wrote down a couple of minutes so I can go back and listen to some of this stuff. But anyway, all right, let's move forward. Okay, so I gave the holy names to the jinn, and I focused, because I thought I was supposed to, on Agaraz first. I even gave him a whole day by himself, and just so, and nothing really happened. But I think the reason nothing happened was I didn't really, I was afraid to give the holy name with too much energy, because I didn't want to drown out the genie himself. So I went light that first day. Okay. Second day, because nothing happened. Second day, okay, I put a little more energy into it, a little more feeling, a little more love. Okay.
Do you feel the holy name, the vibration of it at least? There's some kind of energy result?
It's subtle, but it's snowballing. It's I'm growing into it. Okay. So it's still subtle. But anyway, I got a vision of who I thought was Garaz, but it was a really light vision. And I need to be cautious with this kind of thing, because I can sometimes control visions to be what I want them to be. Genies will just sit there and dance in front of me, and or familiars or whatever, and I'll tell them, no, dance this way, no, dance that way. It's a little game I play with them, whatever. Yeah. But it's fun, man. It's good. So, but anyway, I got a vision of an old man, and then he vanished. And then I got a vision of a crocodile poking his eyes and nose out of the water, and then going back down. Then that night, I had a dream about Baal, and this was a pretty vivid dream. Not lucid. It was a dream. It was more like one of those lesson dreams where I'm just like, I've got no control. I'm just like, I'm learning the lesson. So anyway, I found what appeared to be an aquarium carved out of Himalayan salt. Go figure. I don't know. But anyway, and it was an aquarium, but it was not, it had spaces in there where a frog could be at the bottom of the aquarium, and he's in some water, and he's happy and healthy and clean and awesome. And there was a fish next to him too. Okay. One of those fish where he had like the wavy fins, the long wavy fins.
The tropical ones. Okay.
But it was dark. It was a dark fish, and a dark green
as in black or green dark, or what was it called?
I'm gonna go with black. I'm going to go with a kind of not a super dark black, but it was, but it matched the frog. Okay. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, your symbolism is obvious. Okay, continue.
Okay, and so they were at the bottom of the aquarium, which was a dry aquarium. In the middle were the cats. Okay, and the cats were not all that healthy, and they had fleas on them, and I was not happy with that. But I also had another frog and a fish on top. Now, I have been playing with moving the energy of, the frog up to the head, or the water up to the head, the fire down to the belly, and then vice versa. I've been playing with that just for fun, and I've gotten some pretty tangible results. But anyway, in the dream, then I get flipped out. All right, because it's like, oh my God, more pets to take care of, and it's just my lifestyle is just, I live in my truck, so that doesn't concur with my lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do? Okay, set the cats free. I'd like to be free. I'll just set the cats free. And so I set the cats free, and we had a lot of dogs outside, and the dogs were really excited to see the cats, and the cats didn't mind the dogs too much, and everything was feeling pretty good. But it's like, what do I do with the frog and the fish? I can't just let them free. Well, how do you free a fish? Let them in the water, I guess. I don't know. But then so a neighbor said, no, we can sell these fish. And it's like, okay, maybe we can sell the fish. I don't know. But anyway, that part of the dream faded away. And then I had another dream where a snake was loose in a house that I was pretty much in charge of, more or less. And I was like, relax, I got the snake. I got this all figured out. So I'm kind of moving furniture around to corral the snake into an acceptable place. Relax, I know what kind of snake this is. No big deal. and then I do this all the time. And then the snake bit my hand, and I noticed the snake had like the venom pouches on the side, like a viper. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I made a mistake. Somebody call 911. And then I woke up saying the word one, and that's how I woke up from the dream. And then I had another dream after that, but that dream, we may want to set that one aside for right now. What do you think? What do you want to do? You want the second dream, or you want to talk about this one?
I'll talk about this one first. They might be connected, of course. Now, the first symbol is the fish and the frog. The frog is the mobile energy that can actually move to the top of the head. The fish represents the water element because it's black, just like in the kidney element version.
Yeah.
So instead of giving you like liquid water around, which was already there, it's the fish represents that kidney energy. So you're essentially moving the kidney energy, and the frog is part of the kidney energy, is riding it, so to speak. The problem, as you say, is the cats, which for some reason they're not in the head, they're in the heart area, they're in the middle. So, and there's no man there, no little guy, no human representation, because there are three heads. You're missing your conscious mind, and of course then the dream is unconscious. It wasn't lucid, like you said. So dreams are important in this kind of work when they occur, but they're not the mainstay, and they're not even necessary. They will give us information that we usually can't get in any other way, especially if that's all you got. So your dream was basically saying, look, here's the rock salt. That is a good quality body dynamic, because salt in alchemy is the physical, just like sulfur is the spiritual and mercury is the energetic. So when they talk about those three elements in alchemy, they just mean that. So you have a basically, decent physical frame, Himalayan salt. Then the natural earth energies are good. You're not beating up Kermit the Frog anymore, even though a puppet is not the same as a real frog. But in this case, the cats, your own spirit is being suppressed. And maybe the reason is because you got frogs above and frogs below and cats stuck in the middle. The cats don't have any air to breathe. There's no oxygen there. You're not using the chi enough to actually energize the process. So the cat energy starts from the head. It's the spiritual, it's the solar energy. It's the energy of the solar body, as I said. It's basically the mind, or the fires of the mind. And because this is Egyptian symbolism, it has the cat Bastet, the cat god, who's like the daughter of the sun god, or an emanation of the sun god. So it's an aggressive solar energy that is the focus energy of transformation, the focus energy of meditation. It's not like your mental energy is always fiery. But what happens is that when you focus to the point of transmuting or transforming to do inner work, it needs to be fiery. And especially in Taoism, they say, be careful the water doesn't put out the fire. Don't emphasize the energy to the point that it smushes your consciousness. You have to find the right balance, and that's why they use a cauldron, the metaphor of the metal element, as a go-between, because then the fire can just heat the cauldron up, the metal element, and that would heat the water the best. I mean, you have a sword that's red hot, you put it in a bucket of water, it's going to make the water boil. That's the quickest way to make the water boil, rather than lighting a fire and waiting slowly for the thing to heat up. It's just a metaphor. So your image then flipped out because of the imbalance. You let the cats loose, so that means you have it all derailed into a subconscious paranoia zone. And because your ordering wasn't, it says that Baal favors the disputant, favors the one who the heretic, somebody who disputes things. And that's what basically a disputer is, what the word heretic means. So instead of being a heretic and taking the cats from the head, knowing that they're actually fiery consciousness, and then bringing them down to the lower end, and then bringing the frogs up. So then the two start meeting through the human, because the human is the go-between. If you don't have the human, the water's going to put the fire out. And if you have the human too present, the fire is going to burn the human, and the water's not going to make a difference, because the human it'll just dry everything up. So if you keep the fire on, it can actually make the water evaporate, and you're going to dry up and crack. If you keep the water too much, then it'll douse the fire, and all you'll have is your subconscious, and you won't know how to make sense of it. Maybe emotions. Your fusion alchemy keeps the emotions purified, but in this case, the spirit's not going to renew it, so the jinn aren't going to be able to do their work. You might do breath work and all of that, but it still won't fire up. So you got to be very careful with the energies, not just in terms of composing them from their different angles as they come together, but so their intensities don't overwhelm each other. So that's when I say the word mastery, I actually mean mastery. You're mastering something. This is a very, very subtle form of inner qigong, and it demands that each aspect be mastered beforehand, so you have it. See, Agaris basically appeared. You saw the old man, you saw the crocodile, and he acknowledged you. That was enough. Then you go to Baal, and how is Agaris energy coming into Baal? It's overwhelming it. Agaris is earth energy, so it's reinforcing the frog and the fish a little too much at the expense of the cats.
Okay.
So you need, and that's why you pull in, you meditate on the tarot card too. See, it's your mind's relationship with everything going on around you, and the primaries around you, aside from the world in front of you, the human world, where the man is in the middle, right, is the top, which is the celestial world, and the bottom, which is the earthly world, the underworld, basically, the world of frogs and fish, and the world of cats and dogs. And the dogs are relationships. They are other people. The dogs are basically, because they represent loyalty, basically. And they also are lunar animals because they bark at the moon. So cats are solar animals. So the dog is essentially, this can transition into it's going well. Your consciousness can move into the energy body, but you're having trouble moving the earth energy with your consciousness into the energy body. So you're having trouble fusing your consciousness with the earth energy, which is basically to turn it into a form of conscious, your chi comes alive, and you're as an extension of you. That's how you can direct it. It's not just placing your attention somewhere. Here it comes even more alive. And that's why it heals you even more, because there's more of you in it. It's not just a sensation. It's you coming out the under end of yourself, so to speak. It's you. Well, I'm talking metaphysically, of course. But
of course.
You're moving to the denser physical, and those sensations are combined with the experience of the higher mind. So the denser physical becomes enlightened, and the higher mind becomes grounded. So that's what you want. You want that dual effect. So you're practicing a very big fundamental in yoga and alchemy to be able, and that's right off the bat. That's the initiation, to be able to channel through your metal element. And that's another thing. What difference would it be if it was the wand element, for example, or if it was the cups? It'd be a whole different story. It wouldn't even be doable. It just so happens that Baal and the elements that he represents in the vertical combined with the metal element in the form of a cauldron, like the Taoists have. So you can conduct the heat, the spirit heat that's now coming through the cats, the heat of the mind, mental attention. And so this gets along with your environment and everything, but that's not the point now. You're not out to give the cats to the world. It's like the pet thing, really funny because I've had that now. I mean, I have a new kitten came and from the screaming and I had to take it in and oh my God. And then, worrying about my dogs and this and that. But this, aside from the crazy reflection that sometimes real world events represent internal reflections, just as internal states represent real world events, it's a give and take. And the jinn can help you discern and understand that as it happens. So right now you have this. That's why when people have a hard time pairing jinn together or doing more, summoning more than one, and aside from the fact that they're afraid of it, it requires an increased degree of focus and mastery, of balancing energies together and then letting them come together and mix. You're experiencing something very profound, or rather the jinn are challenging you to experience something very profound. What happens when your chi becomes the moderator between the denser earth energies and your higher mental consciousness? So essentially you will start feeling your head consciousness, which is abstract, as chi. And you'll start feeling, and that'll make it more intense chi. It'll make it more energized, more luminous chi. And then you'll start feeling your water element as chi as well, but in a different way. It's denser, so it'll be more profound, more intense in its mobility. So you're actually empowering these two elements, and as they're coming together, they will then empower the human part. That's what you're going to feel. Your life force is going to become steam. When you connect the water and the fire together, you create steam, and this steam is horsepower. It's power. It's a locomotive power. So they call it the steam engine, a bunch of metaphors from it. So this steam is like from a pressure cooker. It can be channeled and it can mobilize many, many things toward actualization. And it is also the energy that's supposed to be generated in all four directions, one way or another. So you're generating the steam now, but even the rear direction is going to be channeling it through Phoenix and also telling you that, well, it's not just enough to channel it. Now you expose yourself to environmental corruption or influences, so you need to protect yourself. But as all this energy is moving, the other two sides tell you need to stabilize. You need to have a certain basic foundation energy, an axis around which this movement can occur. You need to have a point around which to revolve, like a hinge, or basically a solid reference. And that solid reference is your pleasure principle, channeled to the energy body on one end and through your mental morality, the familiar of Oribus on the other. So essentially the Venusian sensual pleasure principle can be channeled in such a way that it becomes the axis, the foundation of your basis, where you're unshakable because you feel too good, you see, in a natural way. So instead of going, you tense up and I'm so firm, nothing can shake me, you go, I feel too cool to be shaken. I'm fine, and it's an intense feeling. It's like being in love or turning somebody on, but it's completely natural and without that context and very, very innocent. So it's also an energy that could make you popular, that could seduce other people, but it's channeled through your own being. It's like, why do that when you can just be the damn thing and enjoy yourself, And so you start from there, and all of that will condition through those four directions, innate jinn of constant energy input, your life force. And your life force, your chi, is going to be conditioned that way. Instead of doing Taoist exercises or Indian yoga or magic rituals, this inner alchemy will condition your life force. And once it's conditioned in the right way and the jinn tell you to move on, then you move into conditioning your deeper earth energy. And then you move to build with that energy, to actually condition the throne, which is your stable fire source. So that's when the cats are going to be, you need to go through a couple of crosses more for the cats to stabilize. But at this point, you're learning to merge them through the human intermediary. So yeah, you're taking on more pets, but these pets are actually channeled through to become something else, to become a source of empowerment, to become that steam energy. So you're being given pointers and you're being asked to be a little more conscious in the work. Don't be afraid of the divine names. As long as the jinn are contemplated more intensely from the beginning, using their imagery. So you use that imagery and you go, what if this imagery was living? And then turn it into, well, what if it was a human being? So from the giant titanic being of a jinn that's made of strange pieces parts, all coming together, and then it turns into a human being, and then it's a familiar because it's compatible with you. It's almost like a projection of you, or different, like a sibling of sorts from a different dimensional perspective. But you're the one in charge. You're the central intelligence. So the jinn operate under the same principle. There's a central jinn, which is the jinn with a seal, and then you have all the legions, which are basically representations on a smaller scale. That are how the jinn, like the tentacles. You have the main octopus head, and then you got the tentacles, which are the legions. And familiars are like your tentacles. So you have 72 extensions into the world that can help you alchemically move through. And as they do, they also give you all of these side perks of psychic abilities, the ability to interact with the environment, do magic and other things, gain information, all in a stable manner that's not going to cause Kundalini problems. Or spiritual crisis, as they would call it. So that being said, I encourage you to get on with the second dream.
Encourage me to get on. Oh, the second dream. Okay, yeah. All right. Well said, man. I love it. I love it when these podcasts are focused around me. I'm such a narcissist. But
they have to be. That's the way they get interesting. I mean, what am I just talking theory?
This is cool. All right, so second dream. All right, so in the dream, Mel Gibson was my dad. All right, so Mel Gibson's playing the role of my dad in this whacked out dream. It's this one's like, I don't really understand much of this dream at all, but I think it was important, so that's why I'm saying it. And then my mom was my mom. All right. Now, I don't even like to admit this, but I admit it all the time, and I need to be conscious of it. My relationship with my mom is like, there's a lot of resentment, a lot of regret. I'm not proud of that, but that's what it is. All right. And I gotta like slowly move through that and like heal that. But I gotta be honest about it too. So take that in consideration with this dream. Now, in the dream, I was in a driving school. All right. Now, and I was learning how to drive. And
it wasn't called Hogwarts or anything, or
no. This was like this, but it was a driving school. We were there to learn how to drive. But there was a whole lot more to that school, and it was like a cult. And the women were really hot. But they were all, they had a lot of parties, and they would get really drunk, and they didn't want a whole lot to do with me. I mean, but they didn't hate me, but it was just like, okay, you're going to just take care of yourself. And I think at one point I needed a ride home because I couldn't drive, I guess. And I think I had a companion, and I had to end up walking home or something like that. But it was a girl, but she wasn't really a main player in the dream. And then, sorry, this is so confusing, but the dream is hard to not remember, but just to put together. There were underground levels of this building that was the cult's building or whatever. And I went down to the lower levels.
Second. Let me interject. Is the school a cult, or is the cult separate from the school?
No, the school is the cult.
Okay, this is a driving school.
This is a driving school. Yeah.
Is
And my
it like an
dad got
elaborate? Are
me.
people? Is it an elaborate driving school? Do people like wear robes and stuff, or is it just a regular driving school with people wearing regular clothes and just let's get in a car and
People
drive?
people are wearing regular clothes, and the purpose of the school is a driving school, but we never drove anywhere. We never
Oh.
even got
I
into
mean,
a
how do you
car.
know it's a cult? What are the signs that it's a cult?
Okay, so the inside of the school was kind of like a church, and the tables were long, maybe not a church, but like a grand hall for something. I don't know. And the
Sounds like the
tables
dining
were
room in
long.
Hogwarts.
Okay, yeah, all right, there we go. There
That's
we
why
go.
I'm.
All right. And that's exactly what it was. And everybody at the table was just a whole bunch of girls, and they were drunk, having a good time. And they didn't hate me, but they didn't super like me either. I was just kind
But
of
there were
there.
no guys there. You were the only guy.
There was a leader that I think was a guy, but we never saw him. So it was just me and a whole bunch of girls. And then so and I went down to the lower levels of this thing, but I wasn't supposed to be there. And I asked, all right, now let me just keep the lower levels at set those aside. I wanted to leave this place because it started to feel really, really bad. I mean, I knew this was not where I wanted to be at.
Right.
And my dad was like, "Look, you're not going to get out of this, man. You've got to do this." And my mom was like, she was like really adamant that I stay in the school. And I like, this is the part that was kind of disturbing, but I got in her face and all right, but if I do this, I'm going to drag you every step of the way through what I have to experience in this very unpleasant place. Why it was unpleasant, I don't know. But I just knew it was going to get worse and worse and worse. Then my dad, remember, who is Mel Gibson, tried to get me out of this, supposedly. And then we ended up driving to the school. Dad was driving, I wasn't, and I was in the passenger seat. And he said, "Here, take this gun." And so I took the gun, put it in a holster that I already had, and for some reason. And he said, "Look, really, you just need to do." And we were driving to the school to announce that I'm not going to be a member anymore. And he said, "Look, you really need to stay in the school, and you need to do exactly what I tell you to do." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." And then we got it was basically I agreed to be in the school, and then they let me live because I didn't have to fight my way out with the gun. But then they ended up killing Mel Gibson for some reason, and it was a horrible death. He was supposed to be my dad in the dream, and the car blew up, and it happened not too far away from me when he told me to get out. Or no, wait, he went back to the school after we got out, and then he drove back, but he was tied inside the car. How he drove, I have no idea. And then the car blew up, and it blew up really close to me, and was horrible. And so I think this is how it went. I went back to the school, down to those lower levels, to gather some clothing that I needed to have to get out of there. And that's the end of the dream. I don't know what the fuck it means. I have no idea.
I was like the good old days. I used to have dreams like that, but not no more. So this was a dream that went beyond, far and beyond the call of duty, and it was trying to probably. Now let's see. The first dream was. Can you remind me a little bit what that context was? The first dream that with the
The
frogs.
cats
Okay,
and the frogs.
okay,
Yeah.
that's giving you the general condition of your inner alchemy. Okay. After that, it's giving you the deeper level one issues and maybe level two, the deeper karma of the situation. So you're talking about a school that very strongly resembles, to me, when you mention it, not really strongly, but it kind of has that association with the energy with this the salt container with the frogs and the cats. So the rock salt thing, the Himalayan salt. So essentially, you're looking at the dynamics that are going on within you, within your psyche. And these dynamics are, you're in this area that it's almost like you incarnating in this life, right? So you can look at it as a parallel reality. Instead of incarnating as Jay in the family atmosphere that's completely conventional, where all of this thing is under the radar, this is like the actual, oh, if this was a Hollywood drama, that's how my life would really look like from the inside. So you have your mother trying to make you go through these, which I call, see, too much like Hogwarts, this driving school. Why a driving school? What's the vehicle? What does the vehicle represent? I would say the vehicle is the energy body, or however you manifest, the manifesting body. So all of these women are there to learn to be witches, but instead of learning to be witches, they're just partying their lives away, going to seminars, doing this, attending. So these are all souls that are extended from that feminine aspect that's more into civilization. They're not like the natural witches. Some of them may be, but it's all, like you say, a cult of driving the vehicle. The cult of driving the vehicle is basically the detached mind driving the body, something like that, or driving the energy body, or driving the will. So basically, you're some like a horse tamer or something like that, or somebody who tames wild animals and uses them as vehicles. So that would be the more allegorical way of looking at it, because a vehicle is mechanical, it's not really living. So people treat living vehicles like horses as if they were machines sometimes. So these are detached women that are detached and they're morally corrupt. Right now, you're not a danger to them. Their extensions, from good or ill, are those other women that you saw in the previous dream or vision. Remember that you said last time or two times before, the old women in the old villages are basically graduates of that school. Let's put it that way. So your mother is a graduate of that school. The school doesn't necessarily teach magic, but she has in her soul the kind of karmic knowledge of learning to manipulate the environment to get her wish in some way. So to drive the vehicle. So you're learning magic, but you're with them, and you don't want to be. And so the spirit of your father, Mel Gibson, is also, remember Mel Gibson was once stopped by the cops when he was for drunk driving?
Yeah. Hollywood hates that guy. Yeah,
completely, for varied reasons. But basically, he's connected to vehicles like that, just from that, because that's a very prominent news item where the guy was caught for drug. It changed his life. He was blacklisted, all kinds of things. So this guy's like the peak example of some kind of the conservative type that Hollywood doesn't like, for example. Now, so he represents the paternal element, the classic patriarchy, as they would say in woke culture, and also the cool element of that, and that you are on the side of that, but you've been, in order for the sake of, karmic fulfillment, balancing things out, what have you, you've joined this this kind of cult is almost like a female consciousness that many men with psychic abilities are forced to go through karmically, surrounded by women of this type, manipulative, experiences with the mothers and all this kind of stuff, because they are a threat to the manifesting capacity of the archetypal witch. It's almost like the warlocks or something have been all undermined. Now they're all gay, or something like that. So you go, it's almost like a sissification school. Here we'll geld you, we'll cut your little spheres off, and then we'll make you a nice and obedient boy. And you have to go graduate. And you were like, well, they're coming for you, and they're closing in. And so far you're not a threat, but as soon as they get sober, they'll look around and see where their extra booze is or where their extra resources are. Their good time where they could deny that the world is burning, and they're just, a kind of archetypal version of soccer moms without the kids. So it's a kind of this kind of thing. You can see it in California culture. It's almost like that, since you're dreaming of Mel Gibson and an actor. This kind of thing is California culture. and the spoiled daughters of former rich corrupt people, something like that. So this princess type archetype through this feminine principle, this is almost like a level 3 experience. So you're having a level 3 experience. It's a human collective thing, but it's channeled straight to level 1, straight to your own issues, and you're getting to understand, if you can take that leap, how your mother, for example, is affected in her attitude toward you, how her attitude might be affected by certain influences that correspond to a collective level awareness, a collective karma, a little club of like-minded souls who don't know each other physically, but subconsciously or in their dreams, they get together and plan the next step of how they're going to keep their phony lives going. And the Mel Gibson character said, you're going to lose your manhood, because that's what that guy represents. You're going to lose your initiative and your true power, and they got him. Your father passed away and you had all of these issues and stuff. But essentially what got him was that cult. And the cult doesn't exist as a cult. It's a layer of the human collective unconscious, you might say, but it's specialized in a certain direction. And there's corrupt elements to it. On the other hand, the same cult victimizes its own women. If you ever have a genuine female empowered person coming up through, she's going to be used, abused, gaslighted, all kinds of things. And often men are used as the vehicles of the abuse to bring them back into the fold even more. Now, this doesn't mean this is the way it always happens, for everybody, but this is a certain specialized dynamic of the human collective that I've experienced as well, which is why I'm interpreting it in this way. And because I can sense it in you as well. And that you're going back to the same level 1 things that you were addressing when you first did the genies, right? But this time you're understanding it from a level 3 perspective. And you're able to get it. You're able to put it in a certain, it's going to make sense, even if it doesn't completely, that okay, your mix up with the cats, the fraying of your consciousness, being drunk and high in dreams, that symbolizes altered states of consciousness. It symbolizes, you could be psychic states. It symbolizes people meditating or intending or just going into any altered state. So these women are into magic. They may not be performing magic in some readily recognizable way, except for little superstitious rituals. But in their heads, they're intending and focusing just as hard as any ritualist, and even more, and getting their way. They're probably materially extremely successful. And they're kind of in cahoots with negative things. And now that kind of karma is coming home to roost. And when that happens, the rats that flee the ship are going to look for a scapegoat, not to mix my metaphors. So this dream is also predicting something for you. It's also saying, look, you're addressing this and this is what it's doing. So Agaris right now isn't just water. Agaris makes the lights play in the land energies, the spirits dance. It's not that he causes earthquakes. He moves the energy of the earth, the ley line energy, and causes it to come to you. And so you can fill yourself up, but this has to energize you more. Like in the runes, the ley line energy is a rune of fire. It's not a water thing. So the water element is basically a much deeper zone of the earth when you compare it to the sky, which is a fire element. However, within the earth, you also have energized dynamics, mobility, flows, very strong flows, in fact. So Agaris is not just some stagnant pool. You pull it in, but in order to register Agaris, you need to give it purpose. So that's where Baal comes in. It's almost like feel the energy of Agaris, and then start, see, you visualize Baal first and everything, and then you feel the energy of Agaris, and then go back to Baal, because you have the visualization already. And you weave the energy through that. This time as Agaris, experience Baal. And it does not diminish the consciousness of the cat. You can still open up. In fact, the cat is a very grounded being. So this is terrestrial fiery consciousness. It's solar consciousness. It's the mind. It's not the spirit. So your mind needs to ignite. The spirit ignites the mind. In the Aladdin's lamp analogy, like I said, the light is the spirit, the flame and its heat are the jinn energy essence, and the bioenergy is the oil of the lamp, and the rest of it is the physical body, with the nervous system being the wick. So all of these things basically is you become the lamp, Aladdin's lamp, you become the genie of the lamp, but you're also the spirit of the genie of the lamp that illuminates everything. And these need to become a single thing, extending from the physical, of course, and the energetic. So your dream was giving you, like, let's get out of here. Your father exploded the car, his vehicle that he was tied in. He was tied to this false vehicle that basically almost like his own body wasn't his. Like this guy was really the spirit of Mel Gibson. If your father wanted to be whoever he really wanted to be in life, he might have been closer to that kind of archetype in some way. But instead, he was tied to a vehicle and conditions that he never really wanted, but he got stuck in them, just like you did, because he was going through.
Good point, because the vehicle had no steering wheel, and when he came back, there were no seats. It was just a hollow car with nothing in it,
just to blow him up.
So yeah,
it was a death trap.
Yeah,
and he realized he incarnated into a death trap, and on some level, you knew it, And he was flipped out, and that's why it was important to reconcile. It wasn't his fault. He just tried to go. Many, many men have tried to go through this zone where the curse of the goddess of all of this deep subconscious underworld stuff has driven them insane at the soul level. So these are things that it's not women. This is certain souls or certain individualities of the female matrix that have become parasites for the rest. And it's the same thing with evil men. It's basically, this is a certain specific archetype of the juvenile woman that is superficial and taking advantage of shit and just using altered states in order to maintain status and power. So there's no real femininity left. There's no love left. And this is all just at the behest of destructiveness. And realizing that will also set the point of the whole goddess collective is going to turn on them, because these women are controlling the intelligence of that collective. Now, everything I'm saying, of course, is completely controversial and apt to be misunderstood, but at some point you got to not give a shit, And like many people,
it's not,
because
it's
this
not,
is
Go ahead, Ari. Go ahead.
We're not literal, okay? This isn't actually pointing out any groups of women of here and there, this and that. This is pointing out a collective influence that some people react to, and some people will actually represent as a stereotype. There are, distinct templates like that. And there are karmic currents. This is the kind of thing that Western traditions haven't had time to evolve. Anything that existed before in oral traditions was thousands of years old. And with the advent of religions and urbanization and all of that, it's never had time to adapt without being persecuted. So this is almost like a new perception. And Dragon Gin Alchemy here gives you all the means to look at the world in a new way and forge a new mythic context that will carry the experiences through, because it's not making things up. This is just formulating things in terms of archetypes. And archetypes are just the representations of our human nature spread to the collective at a collective level. So level 3 isn't completely alien. I mean, like I said, Carl Jung has pretty much explained a lot of the stuff and interpreted through alchemy and dreams and everything. So now you're journeying through a certain section of level 3 that just one jinn, representing the gateway known as the Magus of the Lovers, which is, like I said, your mind is understanding relationships. And in your case, and at level 1, you're understanding that your karma is connected to this feminine archetypal abusive energy, abusive presence, that whose purpose is to subjugate the vehicle, which could be a horse, which could be an animal. It's basically your animal nature. It's how these feminine manipulators subjugate the animal nature, specifically of men. So and other women, of course. So it's a power factory. It's a factory to teach power, and anybody who comes in with an attitude like Mel Gibson is the enemy. Because if he took it for himself, he'd use it, either abuse it against them, or else just dismantle the whole thing like you want to do, for example, or at least get out of it. Get caught, because a lot of it is guilt. You end up going through lifetimes of being a bastard in terms of abusive masculinity, yeah, that whole toxic thing, and then to repent, you end up going through more punishment than you deserve until it just reaches the other side. Well, whatever was in you that was abusing everything else is now outside of you abusing you. What's the difference? It's still the same thing. It's just that you're on the other end of the trigger, so to speak. So your dad, if anything, realized that, well, you actually made it through, or you're going to make it through, but he's also realizing from wherever he is that you have to make it through. The only way to make it through is using special resources, is to be resourceful in a specific way that was probably not in the manual for most men as they grew up. So in this case, you are being given the collective state, and that once you try to use the jinn, remember the negativity that you feel, the adverse experiences that you may see in the future, that you may see come to you, are related to this cult. So the dream, Baal, is asking you to mark it down as a symbol reference, the cult. And because this cult is where you are trapped through your maternal situation. Like you said, you're going to drag your mother through everything. Instead of saying, I don't want to have anything to do with this, she had a hold on you as your mother, as a feminine representation, going, you're going to be the sacrifice. Because that's what going through the cult means. Your father was a sacrifice. And they want you to be the sacrifice, but you refuse. So instead of saying I refuse, because then there would be retaliation of sorts, you are like dragging your mother through the whole thing. But what you're dragging your mother through isn't the cult, because that doesn't matter. It's always been the same cult. You're dragging her through the cult's demolishment by your withdrawing from it, by your turning away, taking a step out. You realize that the chain that's binding you to the wall is attached to a plug, and you're pulling the plug, and that will make the dam break, something like that. So that's what the sacrifice is for, to plug up something that nobody else wants to deal with. Who's going to hold the water back, while we abuse everything here and do whatever, play house, so to speak, at the expense of everything else? And it's just a frivolous, superstitial thing that has hatred at its root in a very, very innocuous, almost deniable position. It's like, they're just brats, ultimately. They're just little girls who are in the bodies of elderly women or at any age, doesn't matter. People are born that way, without hearts, that for one reason or another, now are just pretending to be superficial, but in reality, they're not having fun. In reality, they're all stabbing each other in the back, forming little in-groups, doing power plays, and bragging about how they're screwing their men and their kids over in the name of love and the right way, or whatever excuses they make. I'm not being misogynistic here. This is a specific group that abuses men and women, and it's not a specific group in the real world. This is a specific group in the underworld, which is the unseen level of influences. So it's quite complicated in that sense, because we're not used to the reference shifting. If you get used to the reference shifting, it's not going to be a problem. And you also, when you get used to the reference shifting, you do not undermine it by belittling it, saying, it's just all in your head. No, it's not all in your head. It's a field of, look, if you're plagued by something, or all of a sudden something challenges you, at least take the time to say, okay, let me take a step back. Is this a cult thing? Is this some direction of humanity that is manipulating the vehicle instead of merging with it or working with it, that is kind of, alienated? Because all cults are ideologies that are alienated from reality. They are not cults of wisdom. That wouldn't be called a cult in the modern sense. So at the end of your dream, you did what? What was the final act again? Did the whole place blow up and you walked away in some slow motion caption
No, I went down deeper into the building
to get your
and got
clothes?
to get my clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get things I needed. Maybe not clothes, but it was things I needed that for some reason I put down there. And
Where
so
they're
I was
hidden
just
in the
like, fuck
deep
it.
layer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm not leaving that stuff. I'm not doing it. I'm taking it. I don't care what the risk is. And I went down and I got it. And I guess the dream ended happily. If it ended in a bad way, I would remember it. So I got down, I got my stuff, and I guess I got out.
Yeah. Which
So
means
if I
basically
wouldn't have gotten out, I would have remembered it. Go ahead.
yeah. I thought you implied that you hadn't gotten out, but the dream is then describing ongoing events. So it's describing your ongoing process that this thing you're doing with the dragon gin, collecting your things and getting out from the deeper layers, that's what that final motion represents. So I think that you have triggered it and you're learning to trigger it better. I mean, because it doesn't have to be a ritual. It doesn't have to be something special. You should be able to do it at any time, to be able to just tune in and feel the thing. And if Agaris is there, it doesn't have to really just assume it's, as long as you feel the energy, right?
Right.
And Agaris connects with Tubael and all the rest after it connects with its own divine name. So it's important that Agaris and all the jinn are connected with their divine names, and because the divine names are their higher intelligences. Basically, the divine name doesn't become one with a jinn, it becomes its crown. So it's the crown the
Yes.
jinn
Okay.
wears. So it gives it its authority, but it's also its regal nature, and it revels in it. It likes that. It's an increased life force, an increased illumination, increased consciousness, and increased ability to connect with you. So the jinn is going, look, here's your karma. Furcus doesn't have to do this anymore and reveal things little bit by bit, because now you're getting a broad picture within a dream. And you could have interpreted this dream yourself, even though it's complex, as long as you distinguish the symbols, as long as you know, okay, the symbol for vehicle is this. Look, my dad's in a car that doesn't have registration, license, steering wheels, or anything.
Ari, most of the time, like 90% of the time, I know exactly what my dreams are telling me. I'm also pretty damn good at telling other people what their dreams mean. But every once in a while, there's a dream that comes along and I'm like, I don't know what is going
This one,
on.
yeah, okay.
But what I can do, and this is something that you kind of taught me how to do, is
Go back
look,
to
if
the
you don't
dream.
understand the dream, just ask yourself what it means and then go dream another dream that will explain the previous dream that you just had.
Yeah.
So, and that works. So if I didn't have you, I could probably eventually figure it out. But because you're here, hey, why
like
not?
that.
You know?
No, well, it's good because if you figure it out, you'll figure it out in a long, extended piecemeal that won't do it justice because it holds an emotional impact. So this is a deep level thing that is very easy to wipe out to mind wipe you, basically. It's very easy for your mind to go, what? What was that? Because it doesn't have a strong hold because it's been denied so much, because it's like, oh, I don't want to look at that. It's too horrible. Right now, this is like after decades of inner work, now this is how it looks. Imagine what it looked like 2 decades ago. It's probably some dungeon with monsters and chaining you to the wall, threatening castration at every turn.
And
So
we'll get into it at one point, but I've got stories that are genie-like long before I ever met you.
yeah.
That have come back to my memory going, holy shit, have I been dealing with genies even before I started like actually doing it formally? Maybe,
Yes.
but we'll
Well,
get into that
very
later.
likely, very likely. And it's the way your
Yeah.
mind works. That's why when I speak of compatibility, the genies pick people. They don't really, it's like anybody go, yeah, you can if you go through whatever, but essentially that means they chose you. But it's not like I'm the chosen one. It means that you have a natural inherent compatibility, which means a probable karmic connection to them. Many people
Yeah.
who are into these things they have affinity with one or two jinn, and or three or four, and then the rest of them are whatever. But those few are almost like go out of the way to contact them, and they represent connections and you seem to have with Furcus a very strong connection inherently, but that means you're connected to all of them. That's like an automatic.
Right.
That and Asmodee are two signs that you're connected to all of them, and you have more of a Furcus one. So, anyways, are
Yeah.
there any other dreams or anything?
No. But I me and you, we always have something to say.
Yeah, yeah,
But nothing recently, but like from this is what I'm going to do, like for next week, is I'm just going to put the holy names around all the genies, give them unless you have different advice,
no,
give
no,
them
no.
all the same attention that I have given Agares and Baal, and
All
see where that takes
72,
me.
all eight, you mean?
All eight,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not all
Uh,
72. I don't think I'm ready for that.
no, no. You will explore what series is best for you. I mean, you could start from east and go to west, and then south and north, or north and south, or you can do it in a circle. You know. Uh,
I was thinking, because like the more you start talking about like the east and west, and then north and south, or south and north, I think I may do it that way
yeah,
instead
yeah.
of circular.
I think that's better because it helps the balance. Because you always have a
Okay.
counterpoint. East goes to
Yeah.
west, you got the axis. Now you do the other axis.
Okay.
And
Yeah. That
you
that
know,
makes sense.
and also north and south, just like east and west complement each other, they also complement each other. They're almost like inversions of each other. So you'll
Right.
see that as well. But you understand now with the east emphasis what the issue is, and how much you're now moving the alchemical elements to create steam, which for some reason among any other, you do this in yoga, even when you meditate, there's like all these resistances that come up, these things that later on, if you practice for psychic self-defense and stuff, you may see that, oh, this is actually some attack from somewhere. Something's actually reacting to me opening my mind up as if it's not allowed or something like that. So people experience that. That may be from the collective. It may be for individual or karmic reasons or something else. But we are here to figure that out through our experiences. So at this level, it's a basic level, because you're forming something highly advanced, which is an individual chi cross made of jinn portals. And these jinn portals correspond to your own energy, the energy of the environment, and the jinn pillars themselves along the lines of certain patterns like celestial patterns and alchemical ones. So it's a major thing. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time in a different way than before. It's not so much chronological time, but it's a certain state of awareness that's coming through that will make you very familiar with what's going on here in a natural way. So your mind and subconscious, just like it took you a while to get familiar, even though with your compatibility with the jinn, to get familiar with what they were about, level 1, level 2, and all of that, now you're approaching it from a level where you're going to be comfortable viewing humanity as a collective, or as like individual receiver units of a collective clouds of influence and stuff that come in and affect them. So human beings don't just react collectively. Individuals have each of us has a different spectrum of that collective field. And that's part of what makes us individuals, our selectivity of and disposition to whatever that collective expanse is, of influence, is good or bad. So we're going to get more into that. Right now, I'd like us to possibly conclude this version of the recording. And thanks everybody for listening. We're going to get deeper into this, and maybe the topics will sound controversial, but if you're really into magic and to see how and where advanced magic can take you, especially if it's in an unknown direction that you may suspect, but here the magic talks back. So you have Jay and myself moving through a kind of internal work, cultivation work with these entities and forces, and then the entities and forces talk back. But it's a dialogue, and it's along the same line. So it's not about, I want you to satisfy my desires. And then the jinn are like, no, you bastard, I'll kill you. And instead it becomes, barter for whose soul is going to be offered and what victims you can, this is all BS. In reality, you have the same process as you would with yoga or alchemy. An internal cultivation, once accomplished, you get benefits. And these are psychic experiences. But here it's very organized toward a direction specifically designed by the jinn acting as a kind of intelligence that's treating your karma as it needs to be treated instead of mechanical, and you're left to your own devices, hoping to sustain an open connection with spirit, which very few people have. It's far easier to have a sustained connection with the jinn because they're more grounded. And they also access the body-mind easier than pure spirit. You would have to have a special disposition there, so everybody has their own. In any case, I'm looking forward to more experiences from you, Jay. This is what makes the podcast kind of move. And
me too, man.
I will fill in the blanks, and I think you get a lot more out of me talking when you can relate to it with something that's going on with you. So it's not just dream interpretations here and stuff like that. This is going through a very complex process that hopefully will be interesting and sometimes even entertaining, but not at our expense. So without further ado, I'll say thank you and have a fun, good evening and a good week, everybody, and see you next time. Same bad time, same bad station. Magus out.